Okay, and so then just for the sake of the recording, this is our share your session episode of Study Hall. And we have Lisa Kilgour here to share her sessions with us. And so Lisa's a holistic nutritionist. We've known each other. I was trying to think about this when we were chatting on Friday. I feel like it has to be about 15, 16 years.
I've been in BC for 15, 16 years, and we met before
Before that.
that. So
That's
it's
true.
almost 20. I could say it by how old Hannah was, if that helps.
That's
'Cause
how I tell time.
Hannah and Ezra were little,
Yeah.
like 3 or 4. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, we've known each other for a long time, and she is by far the best nutritionist I've ever encountered. And so I thought it might be really fun to have her come. She's going to walk through kind of what she does in session, and we get to ask questions and that sort of thing. So I'm going to stop talking, and you go ahead and take over however you like.
Yeah, thank you. I understand now why we do so well together, Alexis, because you are the best energy worker I've ever come across. So I'm like, oh, that's why we have an affinity for each other.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what my thoughts of my way of organizing this today is to talk a little bit about holistic nutrition, supplements, the difference between food and supplements. And then if you'd like to see how I practice, because I do practice differently than other nutritionists, I think if I'm just planting the seed, if you'd like to volunteer, you don't need to decide right now, but like that could happen soon. Otherwise, maybe Alexis will be the volunteer. So holistic nutrition really kind of works in the realm of energy work as well, because it isn't about math on the page. It's about you as a human. I used to describe it as like I work with each person, not each condition. So the difference between a holistic nutritionist and say a dietitian would work with a medical doctor and give diets for heart disease or diabetes, like very specific plans. I work under a natural path if I was to work with a doctor, and I work with each person completely individually. You may come with the same conditions as somebody else, but how you got there and your path to get better is completely unique to you. And it's unique to you because your body is different, your constitution is different, your life and your lifestyle is different. And I love holistic nutrition for how respectful it is for each person, because I don't just take your symptoms into account. I take your likes and dislikes and your ability to change all as a part of this puzzle. And my favorite thing to do is to find the easiest path forward that is so easy that it seems like you're almost not doing anything, but it can just shift something massive and make a world of difference. And so that's where I find the fun, is when I work with somebody new and they're giving me these really difficult symptoms that they've been dealing with for a long time, and out pops, what would happen if we had more salt in your diet, like enormous amounts, and 2 weeks later they come back and they can function at a much higher level. So now we can actually, now there's energy to create the next change. That's what I really love doing. So I the other thing with holistic nutrition, like I'm assuming with energy works, I've never seen an energy worker work in the same way as another one has, is we approach everything differently. So I'm incredibly auditory. My intake forms are 1 page, and it's for you to organize your thoughts and why you're here, not necessarily for me to gain information. Whereas I've worked with other fantastic holistic nutritionists who have a 10-page intake form because they are visual, and it works better for them to be reading with you what's been going on instead of hearing it. And so because of that, there's all this room to be really different and unique. I specialize in really difficult digestive cases. There's just something about that puzzle that my brain really enjoys. But I work a lot in adrenal fatigue, blood sugar issues, and my type of nutrition is undieting. So it's releasing dieting neural pathways in the brain, often unconsciously. Most people growing up in this culture, in this world, will look at food in a dieting way without even realizing that, and be struggling with food and dealing with food noise. And simply by shifting their way of looking at food, which takes like some serious brain rewiring, food just becomes easy. And there's this moment that happens sometimes a few months in, sometimes a few years in, where they just look at me in one session. They're like, food is easy. Food isn't a big deal, is it? I'm like, no, it's not a big deal, because I believe that the body will always ask for what it needs. And when you learn how to decipher its signals, then you can be eating in a way that works for you, that feels good, that you enjoy all the food, and not be worried about a cookie or some cake here and there, because your body won't ask for it unless there's something there that it requires. It's when we vilify something that it becomes loud and powerful. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions at this point? Or Alexis, have I not explained things correctly?
I mean, the way that you describe that is so similar to the way that I think most of us here would describe what we do when we talk about like an energetic kinesiology approach to working with an individual, to figuring out what your body is asking for, right? And rewiring those pathways. So that probably resonates for most people in this group.
Great. I love that. Any questions before we keep going so far? So my next thought is I wanted to talk about the role of food versus using supplements, because they both play important roles in healing and helping the body, but they have very, very different repercussions in the body. So I use both. But it's very, very easy for both my clients, but I think also as practitioners, for us to side and fall into supplementation more than giving food recommendations. And there's positives and negatives to both. So supplements are incredibly powerful in dealing with a deficiency that's been created through life. So say in the past, you had a lot of stress in your life, or a lot of highly processed food, or a combination of both. That's going to lead to magnesium deficiencies, zinc, vitamin B deficiencies that no food can counterbalance, because it was done so artificially. So if you're eating like refined sugar and flour, they're completely lacking magnesium and B vitamins, and those are two nutrients that are required for their digestion and absorption. And there's no food that is natural in the world that is the counterbalance of that. So that's where supplements are necessary. And they are missing food. They are missing coenzymes. They are missing the wholeness of food. And so over time, if we rely too heavily on supplements, then we can create similar feelings and energetic properties of a highly processed diet. I've watched this a bunch of times. People who eat a lot of junk food and people who over supplement have exactly the same physical symptom of, I am hungry all the time and nothing satisfies me. And I saw it often staff that works in health food stores. Alexis, I'm sure you've seen it, where like their list, like it's bags of supplements, because they're given free supplements all the time. They're around it all the time. It just makes sense. And then the highly processed eaters. And the reason why it's the same symptom is, on this side, you have all this food and no nutrients. So the body is starving for nutrients. On this side, you have all these nutrients but no food, and the body is starving for food. And so we need to be really cognizant on how when we're using these processed things, which is a supplement, in our body. Are we using it in a way that is for benefit, for healing, or are we using it as a Band-Aid? I used it as a Band-Aid for a long time in my journey. I used to have a very highly processed diet, and I had big digestive issues and big mold overgrowth and all these other problems. And my body was was desperately deficient. And so I was using really high grade, high strength supplements for years and years and years. And then my skin started breaking out. I was getting these giant welts under my skin. And at the time, I was also in school for nutrition, reading a book called Food and Healing by Anne Marie Colbin. And in it, she talks about people coming to her that are over supplementing, and one of their symptoms were these really painful pimples under their skin, like minerals are trapped there. And it was just this light bulb moment, and I went off the really strong multi and all of the nutrients that I was on, and my skin cleared up in like 2 weeks. The company I was working for at the time, because I was working for a supplement company, they were like, oh, we can use you as a testimonial for our new skin product. I'm like, no, it's not because I took that. It's because I stopped taking this. Like, you can't use me as a testimonial. That's not ethically okay. But what I've watched that happen many, many times. And so it's talking about food, especially when that's not your entire job, can feel difficult. But sometimes it's necessary, because that supplement could help in the short term, but not necessarily help in the long term. Think of a supplement like a match sparking a fire, and food as the log that's going to help burn it for a long time. So we can get the healing started with a supplement, but really we need to find that balance in the whole diet. There are sometimes a need for certain supplements. Like, I rarely can go a day without magnesium, but I struggle absorbing it, and I am self-employed, so I burn through more. So it's fixing this I'm not hanging out in the woods all day, I'm a high strung person problem. But in general, we want to be using food as much as possible. Food also has an energetic component to it. It's not just the sum of parts of nutrients and carbs, fats, and proteins. How that food is grown, where that food is grown, all have really strong energetic properties. I'm sure you guys have talked some about that, because I know Alexis is big on that. I work in more an Ayurvedic way than traditional Chinese medicine, but it's just different words for the same properties. And we can change how we feel. We can get grounded or full of energy, or like we can change how we feel just by using the food. And your body already knows what it needs. It's learning how to get your head out of the way so you can find exactly what your body is looking for. Any questions? So now the big question is, does anybody want to be a guinea pig for a session with me? Alexis, I'm looking for a guinea pig now. Oh, lovely.
I will if nobody else wants to.
Lovely. How do I pronounce your name?
Sharisa.
Sharisa, thank you. Is anybody, we could have time for two depending on what the issues are. If there's anybody else that's interested. Okay, Sharisa, you're up. Oh, Mark, it's Mark, correct?
Yes, it is, Mom.
Okay, lovely. So why don't I work with each of you for 10 or 15 minutes, and then we still have time for questions. How does that sound? That way you're neither of you are on the mega spot for the whole time. Sure. So who wants to start?
Teresa.
Okay. Teresa, you're up.
All right.
So usually when somebody comes to me, they have like some symptoms or a concern that they're dealing with. You're of course a guinea pig, so you may not, but do you have anything in particular, any symptoms or concerns that you are struggling with right now?
I guess nothing crazy. I think for myself lately, I've been wanting to work more on my gut microbiome.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I've had psoriasis since I was 15, which is mostly under control.
Yeah.
But I have been finding like some weird stuff with my face, and I am 40 now. So like, I don't know that I'm in perimenopause, but everybody seems to be talking about it. So you never know, right? So yeah, for me, just making sure my digestion and my microbiome is as optimal as it could be is kind of where I'm focusing right now.
Lovely. I can absolutely help you with this. So what I would love to do is ask you a handful of questions to kind of get to what the core root of the issue is. Stay in your comfort zone. First, I deal with digestion all day. There's nothing you can say to me that's going to bother me or give me any squirms. Like I've heard it all, probably worse earlier today. So you stay in your comfort zone. And if there's a question you don't want to answer, that's okay. Just say pass and we'll move on.
Okay.
So can you give me the history of the psoriasis? Like how long have you had it? Can you just tell me a bit more about the skin symptoms that you're dealing with?
Yeah, I think I was about 15. I'm pretty sure I was 15 when I just I broke out all over my body. Like I had
Wow.
never had it before, and it was like full blown, and it took me a bit to get into, I think, like a dermatologist or whatever, and to diagnose it. And then they started treating me with Puva and whatnot, like going for the light therapy.
Yep.
And so I would have it typically a lot more in the winter versus when I'm in the sun in the summer. It's a little bit better, obviously. But I had it pretty full blown until I moved out of home when I was 17.
Okay.
And then it started to be more manageable after that. So I think for me, it was high stress. That was a trigger on that one. And then I pretty much have had it mostly under control, other than I had another like really bad breakout when my oldest son, after he was born, I think he was about a year. And I think it was just stress, back to work, immune system, all these things. So I had a big breakout, I think, for a good few months before I was able to sort it out. Other than that, for the most part in my adult life, like close to the end of winter when I haven't been in the sun a lot, I'll get some patches like on my arms. I occasionally get some on my scalp, but it's mostly under control. And then I think it's mostly stress related. When I started having some face issues, it was stress, but I had never really had it on my face before. So that was the difference because that was like the one place I don't normally get it. But it is, I think, evening out now with stuff that I've done. But yeah, so I've had it
a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have noticed psoriasis and eczema both have a stress component. So you can do everything right. Like stress is required for it kind of to trigger. Do you deal with any allergic symptoms? Do you get seasonal allergies, hives, rashes, that sort of thing?
Not typically. No.
Okay. Does your skin swell when you scratch it?
I wouldn't particularly, no.
Okay.
Although I do get fairly bad reactions sometimes to like mosquitoes and things like that. Like if something like that, I can, depending on the year, I find like swell up crazy.
Okay. Okay. Do you, and I'm going to kind of shift gears a little bit back over to your digestive system. I'm going to ask you a line of questions. I'm evaluating each part of your digestive system because if we just tackle the microbiome and you have like an issue higher up in your digestive system, your microbiome isn't going to change. So we need to kind of evaluate the whole thing. Are you a fast eater, slow eater? In the middle?
More on the side of fast.
Okay. Do you ever feel like food is stuck in your throat?
No, not usually,
Okay.
I wouldn't say.
Any like regurgitation or acid reflux?
Not usually. On occasion if I have eaten like way too much.
Okay.
You know?
And is it is it the acid reflux side or is it just food kind of coming up and saying, "Hi, I'm not digesting"?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, like a burp with a little bit of something.
Yeah. Body always knows how to
honest.
tell us stuff. Yeah. Do you ever get, so I'm talking now the area above your belly button, below your rib cage, that like the stomach area, does that ever, is it ever tender or just feel overfull after eating?
Yeah, sometimes I would say that that's more recently where I feel like I get bloated if I feel bloated after I've eaten.
Okay. Yeah. Do you ever have you ever had a history of like low iron or B12?
I would say yes, many years ago when I was
Okay.
actually first seeing Alexis after my son was born, I had to take a lot of supplementation to get
Okay.
straight, but
Yeah.
I don't often take any of that stuff now.
Okay, great. Do you have any issues digesting the cruciferous family of vegetables like broccoli, kale, cauliflower?
No,
Okay. What about fatty foods?
I don't think so.
Okay. Any twinging or pain on the right side under your rib cage?
No.
Okay. Bloat, do you ever get distension, like visible bloating, where like you can look down and you feel or look pregnant?
Yes.
Okay. How common is that?
I would say more like if I've eaten a big meal, like if I eat something that's more basic, like meat and
Mhm.
salad or something like that, that would be less likely.
Okay. So what kind of foods would make you more distended?
What I'm thinking is like if I have a meal that's like, potatoes and gravy and like like a bigger
Mhm.
meal, and then I
Okay.
feel like really full, like really gross
Yeah.
after. And I also don't anymore eat a lot of bread other than sourdough because I notice I
Mhm.
think when I eat bread, it also,
You get good. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah.
Do you pass the gas? Like, so when you get distension, do you ever like burp or pass gas?
I mean, sure, I pass gas
Okay.
sometimes too, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that it's like I
Excessively.
get super farty or anything like that.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there is a point to this next question. Does it ever have a strong smell?
Um, Occasionally I'd say closer to my menstrual cycle.
Okay.
Closer.
And does it ever, is that strong smell ever like a rotten egg kind of sulfury smell?
Maybe again closer to
Okay.
my cycle, but
Yeah.
not that I can specifically think of.
Okay. And do all of your digestive symptoms get stronger around your cycle?
I would say, yeah, I think so.
Okay. How regular are you?
Usually very regular. I've
Mhm.
noticed a few odd things in the last 6 months where like
Okay.
either closer together or
Mhm.
a little bit further apart, which has been odd.
Mhm.
But for the most part, consistently in the last number of years, I'm pretty regular. Yeah.
Okay. And feel free to get into as much detail as you want in this poop section. We are recorded, so I'm going to keep things kind of general, but feel free to like give me a full description if that's what you're looking for. Any weird colors? Yellow, orange, green, black, brown, like dark, tarry.
Uh, Maybe sometimes after I've eaten something that didn't really agree with me, like if I've had a
Okay.
lot of junk food or something of
Mhm.
that nature. Yeah.
Okay. And what color would that be? What weird color would it
Like
be?
really dark.
Dark. Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Other than if
Any
I eat a lot of
undigested food?
meat.
And beets are, we use
Yeah.
beets as a way to see how long food takes to get through your digestive
I
system.
just
So
know
it's
because I freaked myself out a couple times. I was like, oh, that's because I ate a jar of beets yesterday.
yeah, yeah. I have a very funny story of when I thought I had a kidney problem because I ate a whole pile of beets and my pee was purple. And I was like, I do this for a living. I should have known better. This was like 20 years ago though. Do and Any pain or urgency?
No, not no.
Okay. When you describe microbiome issue, what symptoms are your concern? Did we touch on those, or are there ones that I haven't asked?
Yeah, I don't know that it's specifically like an issue that I think maybe I have or whatever. I just know
Mhm.
that like your skin can be closely
Mhm.
linked to your microbiome and whatnot as well. And with some of
Mhm.
the skin stuff that I've had, and again with some of the bloating and knowing that I'm going into my 40s, I just
Mhm.
want to, kind of optimize it the best that I can now. Not that I
Yeah,
have any major
yeah.
concerns.
This is a great time to be fixing it. And your symptoms are small, but there are some there.
Mhm.
Are there any symptoms that we haven't talked about that you want to add into this conversation?
I don't think so.
Okay. So from what you've told me, there are two spots where that might be connected to both your symptoms as well as your psoriasis. I have an inkling that histamine might be a problem. You're not screaming it though, so there are people where I'm like, okay, we got to deal with some histamine. Yours is like We might have to deal with some histamine. That might be something to like look into energetically and see how your body is. When histamine doesn't drain from your system properly, psoriasis and eczema can be issues. It gets louder around your cycle, which is why the hormonal side, all of your symptoms get louder around your cycle, and that can be related to histamine. Can also just be hormonal. If you were to get another histamine symptom, so acid reflux, louder digestive issues, hives, swelling, then I would be like, okay, let's work on histamine. But I just want to kind of plant that seed in case this gets louder, because in your 40s, due to the rise of estrogen in the first half of your 40s, histamine can get louder. And so like face flushing is another one. Like if those start happening, then remember this conversation and say, well, Lisa mentioned histamine. This is a screaming symptom. Digestively and microbiomally, if that's a word, I'd say your stomach is the thing that we can strengthen a bit. So the low iron, low minerals, you're a fast eater, you're a mom, means you don't sit down and eat, or you have for years not sat down to eat, means your stomach acid can be weak, and that can lead to all your bloating. Because if we don't fix the organ before your small intestine and colon, then we're just throwing half digested stuff down there. So do you have a pen or a piece of paper or a good memory? Okay, great. So I have 3 things for you to work on. And this may often will fix any microbiome issues. If not, then we've solved that and we need to work on the next one. So to help your stomach, the first one is optional, but really effective, is you got to slow down and chew your food, because your stomach doesn't have teeth. And if you're not relaxed when eating, your stomach doesn't turn on. The only organ of your digestive system that this brain controls is your stomach. The rest of your digestive system is the enteric nervous system. And so your stomach is very connected to your state of being when you go to eat. Even when you eat a lot, you have the regurgitation but no acid. It says to me that your stomach may not be producing enough digestive juices. So the first thing is we got to slow down and give it a chance. This is hard. There's nothing harder I give to anyone. So when you hate me or when you're struggling with it, please also just be kind to yourself and say, this is really hard. And so do your best. The better and slower you can chew, the better everything can be. It is also good for your kids. So if you're eating dinner together, it can be something good for the whole family. Second one is we can increase the acid in your stomach with 2 things. The first one is apple cider vinegar. And see how you like it. It doesn't taste good, but it feels good. Never tastes good. Like I've been using it for 20 years. I still don't like it. But after I have it, my body's like, oh yeah, that's what I needed. So a tablespoon or 2 before meals, especially meat meals, can make a big difference. And then if you get that, like, well, I ate too much, then you can take another one.
Okay.
You can also take it after.
Amount of time before I eat?
No, it doesn't matter. You can take it after if you forgot. It just needs to be in there with the food.
Okay.
The second one is salt and pepper. It's like
those, yeah,
good. I want as much as to your taste. So pepper increases the acid. It requests more acid from your stomach lining, and salt contains chloride, and chloride is stomach acid. So make it, just use your taste buds. They will never lie to you. That works really well. And then the very last thing, and this is quite optional, but can be helpful, when you're sitting down to one of those big meals where you have like gravy and potatoes and meat, if you eat the meat last, it'll be easier for you to digest it. You basically have all the starch before you touch the meat. And it is a very counterintuitive technique called food sequencing, where it is assuming the food stays separate in your stomach. But as somebody with a weak stomach, I can tell you this can be huge at just stopping that feeling, because it can that meat needs to spend 6 hours in your stomach, but the potatoes don't need to be there at all. And so it can help kind of move it out. Okay. Just see. If it doesn't work for you, you don't need to do it again, but it can make a big difference.
Okay. Mm-hmm. No, that's really great. I know I do try and sometimes slow down when I eat. I forget. It's from when I was a kid. We ate fast.
It comes from families. And then like, If you have kids, it makes it even harder because then you go through a phase where it's like, I just need to eat whenever I can have a minute. But more than anything, it comes from that family of origin. And it's I had to do this myself. It's a very, very hard one to break, but huge. It's worth it. It's 2 weeks of hating me. Like really not like it's 3 days of really like resenting me for recommending it. And then it's okay after that.
I can deal with that. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have any questions?
No, I think those are all really simple, easy starters. I had been looking at apple cider vinegar already, like because I've been watching some videos and stuff like that. So knowing when I can take it and whatnot too. So, and I think they're all fairly simple. Like in terms of this, the slow eating will be difficult, yes, but
it is really hard, yeah. But it's like for your microbiome and your psoriasis, if we can get your stomach working properly, then there's less undigested protein to start causing problems, and it will set the stage for a healthy microbiome. No, does anybody have any questions about that? What I asked, where I came up with my ideas? Yeah, Alexis.
It's not really that, but I'm curious when you suggest black pepper as something that requests more stomach acidity, do all peppers count for that? Like, let's say that you live in a country where nobody really puts black pepper on stuff, but you douse all of your meals with hot sauce. Does it do the same kind of thing or not really?
I think so. I think so, but I don't know so. And I say that because I've been going through an absolute obsession with red chili flakes, and my stomach has been really loving it. And I've needed less black pepper, and black pepper doesn't taste as good to me because red chili flakes have been feeling so fantastic. So I think so, but what I've seen and what I have like researched, it's black pepper specifically, but yeah, if it's feeling good, your body knows. If it feels good, then, and you don't have access to black pepper, so who cares? Like, do what you can.
You have access to it. It's just that I realized as you were talking that I've really gotten out of the habit of putting a lot of it on my food because we put hot sauce on everything. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, I wonder if that does the same thing or if it doesn't really count in the same way.
Well, the way that you can test it is next time use black pepper first before you put hot sauce on your meal and see how it tastes to you. If your body has had pepper before, you are very aware of your body. If you're like, oh my gosh, this tastes like the greatest thing ever, then yes, your body needs black pepper. If instead you're like, yeah, I like hot sauce instead, then your body knows. Your body is brilliant and it can figure that out. Yeah, Lisa.
Yeah, I have a question. When you're talking to her, are you doing any kind of energetic work to get this information? Or are you basically just logically putting it together?
It's a combination of logic and intuition. I would be lying. Like if I wasn't talking to you guys, I wouldn't add my intuition side, but there is an aspect of logic. I am very, very auditory. So in my head, it's actually a puzzle I'm putting together. So I will spend an hour doing these like if a client comes to me, they usually have variety of complex issues. And so you saw like 10 minutes of an hour conversation I have with people. And so I'll go down a bunch of different paths and kind of put together a puzzle while writing notes because my brain works best if I'm doing both at the same time. But a lot of times, like where I go down that path will be intuition. So I start with, like intuitively, I thought histamine, let me ask questions and see if the body is saying that. And I have noticed that my intuition can give the best results. Like sometimes it can find something that my brain would never have found. But I'm not trained in energy work, so I don't have like a system I do. I just have worked with thousands of people at this point, and I know that sometimes a thought pops in my head, and I'm like, I'm rolling with this but my brain needs proof. So then I have to ask some questions to see if I can figure out that path. But often one path I always take people down is what are you craving? What foods does your body really like? Because that also tells me energetically what your body is looking for.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Did I ask anything weird that people are like, that you're trying to figure out why did I ask that? This one didn't have that many odd questions, but every once in a while I'm like, why doesn't anybody ask me why I wonder why if your gas smells and why what it smells like. I find that curious.
Well, that's never a good thing.
Mm. Not necessarily. So strong smelling gas is simply a small microbiome imbalance. If it's smelling like rotten eggs, like a sulfur, that's protein not digesting, and that's another symptom of the stomach.
Actually, that makes me think of another question. Some people, when they drink or they eat asparagus, their pee smells, and some people it doesn't.
It's for everybody, but not everybody can smell it. I've learned that recently because it's not just it's not that only some people it happens for everyone, but not everybody can smell it.
Does that
Yeah.
sort of mean zinc when your smell's not smelling?
Yes. But this one is more of a genetic thing. So yeah, you're 100% right that when your sense of smell is off, zinc is the main deficiency of that. But when it comes to the asparagus thing, I believe it's like a genetic thing, like people who think cilantro tastes like soap. It's like something that can't be fixed. It's just you have it or you don't. Yeah,
I have a
Andy.
question for you.
Mhm.
While we're on the subject of smells, um, what causes urine to smell like coffee?
Coffee.
Yeah.
That's a great question, and I don't know the answer, but I can look it up. I can find out. Um, yeah, that's really interesting. Like the bitterness of coffee, or like a full-on coffee.
Yeah, it kind of gets more like the bitter side of coffee, but it's like very
Okay.
reminiscent of coffee.
And is it all the time, or just when you eat certain things, or the person who has this when they eat certain things?
It's usually when they're hydrating with coffee. They're not drinking enough water, but they're drinking a lot of coffee. They kind
Oh, so like
of
I bet it's a bitter compound that's coming through the urine, or just like super dehydration that's doing it. Alexis, do you have any ideas? Yeah. Yeah, that would be like, I bet it would be like either from the kidneys, but let me look into it and I'll send it to Alexis and send it out. But that's a very interesting one. I love interesting questions. I really enjoy it when I don't know an answer because it's like, I would never have thought of looking that up and figured that out. This will be fun.
glad I could help.
Any other questions? So I think Mark is up now.
Okay.
So, do you have any symptoms or concerns or even just like lifestyle stuff that you are struggling with right now?
Well, mine's a skin thing too, I suppose, when I think of food. But then I thought of what you said, like Shariza was saying all her things. I thought, oh, that's kind of similar, but maybe it's a different pathway.
Okay.
I have like a low inflammation on my around my forehead,
Okay.
which
Mm-hmm.
comes and goes like the tide.
How long? What's the pattern? How long does it last when it comes? How far
It's
between?
always there, but it gets to an intensity like a sandfly bite or a mosquito bite,
Okay.
but like a blanket effect.
And
rather than-
and how long does it take to go away or to reduce back down to the quiet version?
Hours?
Okay. Hours. Is it itchy?
Yes.
Is it like the spots are itchy or is the whole itchy?
The whole is itchy, like a blanket
Okay.
rather than a spot.
And how often does it get loud?
Maybe once a month.
Okay. And is it as itchy as a sandfly bite? Ooh.
Can be, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you get does your skin swell when you scratch? Like if you scratch the inside of your forearm, would that like either puff up or get red?
No.
Okay. Do you deal with any allergy symptoms at all, like seasonal allergies or allergies to dander or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
I don't do well on chilies and nightshades.
Okay. What happens?
Well, when I have tomatoes, just amongst us and those that listen to the recording, um, is my feet go quite red
Okay.
and they get very itchy and hot, like really
Okay.
hot.
What happens when you eat chocolate?
I feel happy
Uh-huh.
and relaxed and
Okay.
content.
And no symptoms?
No symptoms.
Coffee, tea, any symptoms with those?
No,
Okay.
I don't
Alcohol?
do coffee.
You don't do
I don't.
coffee.
No,
What about black tea, green tea?
no, don't drink tea.
Don't drink those? Okay.
No,
Citrus? Do you react to like lemons, limes, oranges?
not that I'm aware of. No, it
Okay.
seems all good.
What about like canned meats like tuna or salmon?
I stick mainly to plants.
Okay. Okay. Um, so outside of this one spot, do you have any other like physical symptoms that may seem completely unrelated? I'm just working on the puzzle of Mark.
Um, Apart from my feet, which get irritated,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and that does seem to be a food directly
Mm-hmm.
related to, like,
Yeah.
say even potatoes sometimes, but the
Okay.
tomatoes, like turning on a switch within
Mm-hmm.
10 minutes.
Okay.
But
But no, have you found any food connection to the forehead? Okay. Any itchy eyes, runny nose, anything like that comes with it? Okay. Digestively, how is your digestive system?
I'm a fast metabolizer.
Okay. So things go through you quickly, or that you eat a lot and you can, and like you have a big appetite.
I have a big appetite and they go through me quickly, but quite well processed as well.
Great. Are you a fast eater, slow eater?
Medium fast?
Okay. Do you get any acid reflux, any like heartburn, anything like that?
No,
Okay. Do you ever get any regurgitation, like food coming up and going back down?
no,
No. Great. Any heaviness, like the same thing as I said in the last one, any heaviness kind of in the stomach area, so above the belly button, below the rib cage?
If I do like breads,
Okay.
like
Mhm.
flour breads rather than a seed bread,
Okay.
sourdoughs and seeds is okay. If I
Hmm.
go somewhere else and it's sort of like flour,
Hmm.
it's like glue.
Okay. And describe how it feels when you eat that glue.
Uh, well, physically there is that sort of protrusion in my stomach,
Hmm.
but energetically I get quite lethargic. My
Okay.
my
Yeah.
brain slows down,
Yeah.
so generally I don't
Ooh.
bother with breads a lot.
Hmm. Is there any other foods that you avoid due to how they feel?
Tomatoes?
Oh, yeah, of course. But anything like, are there any other foods that you may eat like at a restaurant or at a friend's house that you kind of like avoid eating other than the bread?
No, bread and tomatoes.
Bread and tomatoes. Okay. Any bloating, lower, distension, abdomen? Okay.
No,
Any
it's all seems
issues with
fine.
the cruciferous family? Broccoli, kale, cauliflower,
No,
cabbage?
all good.
Okay, great. And you can eat, do you eat those regularly? Lovely.
Yeah.
Any constipation, diarrhea, any colon issues?
No, I'm pretty regular,
Okay,
like by clockwork,
great.
and probably poo twice a day.
Beautiful. Any weird colors?
It fluctuates, I suppose, from sort of a brown to a light brown,
Okay.
but sort of in that sort of
Mhm. Does it ever
area.
get beige?
No, not
Does it ever get orange?
no,
Okay. Any urgency, pain, anything like that?
no.
Gas.
Uh, yes.
Hmm. Strong
Um,
smell?
Sometimes it varies.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Hmm. Um, any symptoms we haven't talked about that you want to add into this conversation?
not that I can think of.
Okay.
That um,
I would say the highest likelihood of your rash is histamine. both because it's itchy and like bug bitey, but because you also react to tomatoes, which are a histamine releaser. You have a different symptom, and then you don't eat any other things that have histamine in them. So you have like very little. So what might be happening is that you actually have very little input of histamine. You have this one food that causes a big reaction in your feet, but your skin might break out when your histamine bucket simply overflows. So that can be dehydration. That can be that you've taken in little bits of histamine foods, but your suddenly it just overflows, and that's because like you'd have a lot more symptoms if you ate a regular diet. If you had coffee, tea, alcohol, if you had some meats in your diet, if you ate leftovers all the time, you would have many more symptoms. But because you have very little histamine already, you have this one quiet one, which means we just got to drain your bucket.
Mm-hmm.
And then hopefully that's how we'll see whether or not your skin reacts. I'm having it created right now. I should have it tomorrow. I'll send Alexis out. I just have like a info PDF on histamine issues, what it is, what's going on, but then also like, here's how to balance it out. Here's how to drain your histamine bucket. And I'll send that to you and just see if it helps. If it doesn't help, then we've taken histamine off the plate of the cause of this. It's itchy and bumpy.
Mm.
It's so histamine like, but it might not be. And so the only way to know for sure is either being able to test energetically or doing a low histamine diet for 2 or 3 weeks and seeing if that makes a difference. And then what can happen is if you get this again, you then have, okay, all I need to do is take this natural antihistamine and in 15 minutes it's going to be gone. So you can catch it right at the edge.
No.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing was it happened for 36 years of my life, there was nothing. And then it was almost like a boom. And that's where we found tomatoes.
And that's where like that very much plays out with histamine. So histamine is a natural part of your body. Your body is making it all the time. It's very important for the body. But if your body suddenly either starts overproducing it or it's not draining out properly, and that can be a minor microbiome change. It can be just your liver is not making enzymes correctly. It could be that you were born with an enzyme deficiency and it just got loud at 36. Like it is, histamine is something that comes and goes. It comes and goes when your body is struggling with balancing it out. It's gotten really loud in the last 3 or 4 years because one version of long COVID is mast cell activation syndrome, and histamine intolerance lives under that. So in the last 2 years, I've seen more histamine issues than I've ever seen. But it is very easy to control, especially with what your diet is like and what's going on. And it really would just be an experiment and see.
Thank you very much.
But you're welcome. I'll send that to once I'll have it tomorrow. I'll send it to Alexis and then she can send it to you and anybody else who's interested in it.
Awesome. Thanks, Lisa.
You're welcome. Any questions? Oh, do you have any questions, Mark? I forgot to ask you that.
No, that's good.
Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I think I heard you correctly. You said that long COVID links in with mast cell.
One version of long COVID. There's a few different issues happening with long COVID, but one of them is mast cell activation syndrome, and it's a decent percentage. It's probably a quarter to a third of long COVID. That's a number relating to the numbers I've seen, not necessarily like statistical, but it is it's a fairly common one, even in COVID, while you're having COVID, working with histamine can reduce your symptoms.
Okay, that makes sense because I have a client with mast cell that we're working on, and that does make sense. Can we all get a copy of that histamine thing that you're going to send?
Yeah, perfect. I'll send it to Alexis.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Either about what we just talked about or general nutrition questions?
I have a question. Just in general, I mean, obviously, I know that everybody is different. And so we're not all going to have the same deficiencies, but is there like top three like supplements that you normally see that you would recommend that people take, just given the nature of our life?
Yeah, it's a great question, because you're right, everybody is different, but we're all living in this crazy lifestyle. So the top three that I see would be magnesium is number one. I can find magnesium deficiencies in so many, like I've seen calcium deficiencies twice. Magnesium deficiencies I see like 95% of the time. B complex, especially people with methylation issues. Magnesium and B both are stress induced. And then it's a tie between vitamin D. I live somewhere north. Vitamin D deficiencies are just expected in Canada where I am, but then omega-3s as well, like fat in general. A lot of people aren't digesting fat properly right now in general, and so I'm seeing a lot more essential fat deficiencies than I've seen in the past.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Lisa, you had a question?
Yeah, my question was about methylation. I've heard recently that 50% of the people, and I'm in the US, so maybe the numbers are different elsewhere, 50% of the people have methylation issues.
Yeah.
So do you find that coming up a lot, and what do you do with that?
Yeah, and I fought this one for a long time, actually. So it's somewhere between, the numbers are somewhere between 30 and 60. So now I'm just assuming once we hit around 50, I'm like, okay, we just got to assume it's an issue for everyone, because assuming it's a problem isn't harmful. The thing that really tipped me over was very, very new research finding that folic acid in particular is wildly problematic for people with methylation issues, that it actually blocks any ability to get folate in. And that can lead to neurotransmitter issues, actually histamine issues as well. Like there's a whole pile of problems that can stem from folic acid, which is a synthetic vitamin that doesn't exist in nature, taking up all of this space where folate can't come in. And so I started with experimenting with myself, and I finally like bit the bullet and started using methylated B vitamins. And it took 6 months, but I'm like, wow, my brain is better balanced now. And so, yeah, I generally, at this point, rarely recommend non-methylated Bs, just in case, because the repercussions of a folic acid supplement is just too strong for up to half of the people. So there's no harm in somebody that doesn't have a methylation problem having methylated versions of the folate, B6 and B12, but there is a problem for those who do have methylation problems if they don't take them.
Okay, that's what I wondered, if everybody could take them. And do you prefer certain kinds? I've just recently gotten these sublingual B complex, then sublingual B12, and the B12 is 1,000 milligrams, which is a little higher than I would think.
It's micrograms, so that's only 1 milligram. So it's 1,000 micrograms for B12 is totally fine daily. 5,000 is where I like it's at 5,000 I would start being cautious, or maybe doing it like twice a week instead of every day. The sublingual for B12 is really helpful because your stomach is weak. You don't make the intrinsic factor to actually absorb your B12, and you can skip that by doing sublingual. I haven't seen sublingual B complex yet. We don't have that in Canada, so I don't know how that would affect the absorption. I haven't experienced that myself, but a good quality B complex can make a big difference.
Yeah, I just got it on Amazon.
Nice. I'll check it out.
There you go. And with the mast cell activation syndrome, where have you gotten with people on that?
I work primarily with the histamine side of things, and I have gotten really far with people. I don't have testing. Testing isn't possible in Canada, so we come in by using food to see if it helps. But I've watched people get their life back. And
is that mainly through just improving the digestion then? Is that where the issue is?
So we do the acute problem is the high histamine. So we deal with that first. And then once the histamine is under control, then we deal with the gut, which was the cause of the high histamine to start with. And these are people who are dealing with massive symptoms, like they are bedridden with migraines every day, or they're dealing with like severe digestive issues. And so therefore we do take a bit more of a strong approach. But for a lot of people, they don't need to do anything dramatic to get their histamine under control, and they can get and a lot of the natural antihistamines like quercetin is a mast cell stabilizer. So it's not an antihistamine specifically, it actually stabilizes the mast cells. So that reduces the release of it later. I myself deal with histamine, so I like practice on myself more first. So all of these things I've done self experimentations first.
Now, do you get them to the point where they don't need something like quercetin, or is that a lifetime?
Generally, yes, but depending on the undercurrent of why, I usually recommend keeping it in the house, just so if you have a reaction, you can deal with it right away. There's a few different like genetic reasons why somebody might have high histamine, and that can be that their body doesn't make the two enzymes that are required to break down histamine. That therefore we can get the body in balance, we can drain the histamine, but you're prone for it to increase again, depending on your life. And then there are the simply gut induced, like a simple change in your microbiome. You now have more histamine producing bacteria in your gut. We fix that and you never deal with a histamine problem again. It all depends on the person and what's going on.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Can I ask one last thing, microbiome kind of related? Because we were just doing, some people here were doing guardian organ microbiome class with me all weekend.
Cool.
And so if we are talking about stabilizing microbiome, are there probiotics that you generally recommend to people? Because there were some questions coming up about supplementation, and I've got scan sheets and things so you can muscle test for which ones you need. But I'm curious, like in your thoughts, is it worth shelling out for the ones that have the soil organisms and the phos and the, all of the other things in it, or what do people need?
Yeah, so the first one, prebiotics like phos, fructooligosaccharides, completely unnecessary to buy. If anything, they're just going to make you bloated. All of the plant-based fiber in your diet are your prebiotics. And you need so much more than a sprinkling in a capsule. So just ignore that part. I only use soil microbes for people who are really sensitive or have screaming SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and can't tolerate anything else. But I have or they want to do it themselves, then I'm fine. I'm not an expensive supplement person. I want people to actually survive and eat food instead. And then when it comes to probiotics, the first rule is you notice a difference. You take it for 2 weeks to 4 weeks, and it makes a dramatic difference, a noticeable difference in your gut. If it doesn't, try another one. And if you don't have enough digestive symptoms, then having just one good a good probiotic once a week will replace the input that we used to have through poor sanitation and bacteria-filled water. We don't have that now. That's all fantastic, but we do still need to seed a bit. The strains that I have found in general work well is multi-strain probiotics that have the strain Bifidus infantis in it. Bifidus infantis is the first strain of bacteria to really populate a baby's gut and creates this it's basically the basis, the floor of the whole microbiome. And if you weren't breastfed or you've had a lot of digestive issues, chances are your infantis isn't there. And so there's a lot of great products on the market right now that have infantis. And I generally recommend a multi probiotic, not just the infantis. If somebody's concerned with histamine, there are some bacteria that cause more histamine growth in the body. I don't know them offhand, but they're in that PDF I'll send you.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Anything else you want to ask? Yes.
A quick one. What do you think about colostrum?
Colostrum makes sense as a gut healer. It's that first thing babies get. I did an experiment in myself about 20 years ago. I was not breastfed, so I thought colostrum would make a big difference, and it made nothing. And that's just me. That's an N=1, so it's not necessarily. It's just really fashionable right now. I get great results for gut healing on things that are less expensive, like L-glutamine, beef collagen, bone broth, that sort of thing. And so I go there first. But colostrum has that potential. I just haven't yet seen it do something to blow me enough out of the water to actually recommend it. But you're the third person to ask me in the last week, so it's gotten really popular.
Well, I'll just tell you about myself. I've had pelvic radiation, so my small large intestines have been radiated like 8 years ago. And so, I keep working on my gut. And I recently took the Armra colostrum, expensive, for 3 months, and it made a big difference.
Great. That is fantastic. One thing to get to know also, just as a general rule for all of you, if somebody has had radiation anywhere in their body, their gut needs to be healed. So it's not just that you had it on your pelvis. If you had it on your foot, it still would have affected the lining of your gut. So every and it always is fixable. So if somebody had radiation 20 years ago, it's time to fix their gut lining.
Oh, great. That's good to know. And I
But
also
that's great. I'm glad that you knew that, because that's a really important thing to do.
Yeah, and I also take aloe vera.
Great. Yeah, that's a good gut healer as well.
Okay, so we're past the hour, so I don't want to keep you for too long here, but just really quickly, why? Like, because I have my own theory since you just said that for a second, but like, why, if you had radiation on your foot, is that going to affect your gut microbiome?
When I worked in integrative cancer care, we did this for everyone who had radiation. And the theory was because they're all like, it kills fast growing cells, and the small intestine in particular is a very fast growing cell. And you're growing, like, your whole and small intestine can grow in 3 days. So it can make a big difference. What's your theory, Alexis?
Well, I just had this whole, workshop where I'm talking about like the microbiome and the fascia and how they're related. And the fascia is the communication system for a lot of that, but also that the microbiome in all the cells is related. So like, I was just curious what you were going to say.
Yeah. I still want to take that course. And the more you talk about like that I want to take that course for sure.
We'll make it happen.
Okay.
All right. Any last things for Lisa before we turn off recordings here?
I have one wee question. One of the things I find, Lisa, is when people in the kinesiology world, they need a nutrition, they'll come in with their supplements, but their body doesn't acknowledge it's not an optimum source of that supplement. They might be vitamin C deficient, and they'll come in with their vitamin C, and the body just goes, no. There's a misalignment, and a lot of the time I'll correct that through a session, and a sip session or something like that. But there's sometimes definitely not that with me.
There's what supplements don't have is the cofactors required for the digestion in the first place. And so that can be why the body says no. It could be that the organ, like maybe it's a mineral and the stomach can't break it down. Like there's so many reasons, like our head is what decides that we want to supplement. Our body can say, no, I can't do that. And what's always missing in the supplement world is the fact that ascorbic acid is just the shell of vitamin C. There's all of the cofactors. There's so many other aspects of it. And yes, that can help increase it, but it's not the ideal way. Like maybe that same person would do better with camu camu or acerola cherry, a whole food vitamin C, where all of those other aspects, but the body understands that better. You're welcome.
Okay, in the chat, can we get Lisa's contact info?
Yeah. My website, let me spell my name correctly, .com, or my email if you just have follow-up questions. Dieting.ca. There we go. I did spell it correctly. You'd think I'd know how to spell my name at this point, but it's the end of the day.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us this evening and taking your time and sharing
nice
your
to meet you all.
approach.
This was fun. It was really nice to meet you all. It was nice to see you again, Hannah. And Jorah.
Isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, boy, he's huge. Yeah, it's craziness. Okay, well, I'm going to turn off the recording for the evening. Bye, everybody watching this.